Hi guys, so I have combined section 1.4 and 1.5 for you. The shorter sections, just kind of a review.
Good morning, teachers.
So anyway, we're going to start here with our key concept. Please write this down in your notebook. Our key concept is technology continually changes the way biologists work, and understanding biology can help make you make informed decisions. And again, as you're going through, I'm going to flip through the slides fairly quickly. Just feel free to pause on the slide so you can write it down and then continue with the video when you're ready to go. All right, our vocabulary for this section. Our vocabulary includes measurement, qualitative data, quantitative data, microscopes, biotechnology, and gene. Our main ideas, we have several because I combined two sections. But our main ideas include observations include making measurements. Technology contributes to the progress of science. Tools of molecular genetics give rise to new biological studies. Your health and the health of the environment depend on your knowledge of biology. And complex systems are modeled on computers. And then lastly, we will talk about this just a little bit, but as we get more into genetics and things in biotechnology, which I'll talk about, biotechnology offers great promise, but also raises many issues. And again, that's something that we'll talk later on more in detail about. And lastly, biology presents many unanswered questions. All right, our essential questions. Describe why newer technology may not make older technology obsolete. What are some reasons why biologists use computer models? How might biology help you better understand environmental issues? How might genetically modified crops affect biodiversity? And how does technology help answer biological questions? All right, so when we talked about the scientific method in the last video, we talked about how scientists always make observations. And observations aren't just writing details down about things, but also includes taking measurements. So when making observations, scientists collect data, and we have two major kinds of data. We have qualitative data and quantitative data. If you hear the word qualitative, it sounds kind of like quality. So in qualitative data, it's data collected using our five senses. So what color is something? So what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? Okay. Qualities. So data collected by using the five senses is qualitative data, sorry. Then we have quantitative data. Quantitative sounds kind of like quantity, numbers, okay? So what quantity is something? So quantitative data is data collected by using tools to get a measurement. We're going to weigh something. We're going to see how tall something is. We're going to count something, okay? So qualitative, what qualities does it have? So again, the five senses. Quantity, what's the quantity? Quantitative data, okay, using numbers. All right, technology contributes to the progress of science, and a microscope provides an enlarged image of an object. And some of the most basic concepts of biology, such as the fact that cells make up all living things, we didn't even know about that, or we couldn't even imagine that before the invention of microscopes. Now, obviously, our microscopes have gotten better over time. When we talk about cells, we're going to talk about the different kinds of microscopes. We're going to talk about the invention of the microscope, and we'll show you some pictures of what it actually looked like. And it wasn't a very good microscope, but it allowed us to see that all living things were made out of cells. This picture here, this is the picture that you're most familiar with. These are the kinds of microscopes that we use in school. So let's talk about those. So our imaging technologies provide new views of life, and we have four main types of microscopes that we're going to talk about. And that's the first one, is the compound light microscope. Now we call this the compound light microscope or light microscope because it uses a light to shine up through the specimen. It's got to be a very, very thin sample so that light actually shines through it. And compound because we're using two lenses, okay? So it magnifies the image using the two lenses. And this, again, is the kind of microscope that you've seen and used in school, compound light microscope. Here's an image of a leaf cell, and this is the top side of a leaf. It's a part of a leaf called the stoma, and the stoma is where The leaf takes in carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. And again, it can't magnify like a huge amount, like some other types of microscopes we're going to talk about, but it does magnify a very small sample of something, and it uses light to shine through so you can actually see your sample. Here is another type of microscope that's similar to the light microscope. It's called a stereoscope, and you can think about this as like a magnifying glass on steroids, okay? It allows you to see the outside surfaces of whatever you want to look at. And it has a light that shines up through your sample, and it has lights that shine down on your sample. So if you want to look at something that's alive, like I could put a little beetle or something else on in a little dish on this microscope, and I can actually look at the colors, I can look at the way its wings are shaped, I can look at some of the features that it has on its body, and then I can put it back outside and let it go about its life. You don't have to have a deceased or a dead specimen for this. You can use something alive. We also can use this for dissection. If we want to enlarge something so we can cut it and look at the little pieces of it, we can do that. But again, it's more like a magnifying glass on steroids. It's not that super detailed image that you would see using a different kind of microscope. So here is my favorite microscope. This one's called a scanning electron microscope. And this actually shows a 3D image of the outside surface of something. And you can see in that picture, this is a huge microscope. It actually uses electrons, and it shoots the electrons at the specimen. And when those electrons hit, it sends an image back to the computer. Now, some images are still in black and white, and sometimes they are in color now. But it provides a really cool 3D image of the outside surface. So here's a picture of the same leaf cell, and there's the stoma, but now we can see the actual outside surface, so what it actually looks like if we were sitting on the leaf and looking at it with our own eyes. Now we have transmission electron microscope. A transmission electron microscope provides a super high resolution of an image, but it's got to be a super, super thin sample. The electrons actually pass through the specimen, so you can see the inner workings of that specimen. And it can magnify up to 2 million times. So here again is that same leaf cell, and there's the stoma, but we can actually see the inside of it at this point. Next thing, imaging technology is used in medicine. So when you're trying to make decisions about your health, doctors will sometimes use imaging techniques to determine the cause of what's going on. We have X-ray images, we have things called MRIs, and we also have CT scans, and these are all things that you guys are pretty familiar with at this point. Now, a lot of times we cannot visualize things with our own eyes, and we need to use computers to help us do so. So computer models are used to study systems that cannot be studied directly. And we use those to study things like heart attacks, effects of medicine on the human body, the movement of water molecules in and out of cells, and the spread of disease through a population. Okay, so again, we use computer models and computer programs to help us visualize these things or do experiments on these things, because it would be otherwise not safe, it wouldn't be ethical or practical to do these experiments in real life. So computer models are used. Your health and the health of the environment depend also on your knowledge of biology. And so if you start to think about your health, when you learn more about biology, it helps you make informed decisions about your health. And I would say that's my huge takeaway for like why you should study biology, you know, like what's the whole point in studying this for you guys? Well, it's so that you can make informed decisions about your life and the world around you based on your knowledge. And our knowledge of biology helps you understand your health, because doctors are people too, you know, and it's good to be able to make your own informed decisions when they tell you something. So some things we can learn about are like food allergies, potential effects of obesity, cancers, effects of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and those are just a few of the things. Our knowledge of biology also helps us understand the world around us and environmental issues such as interactions in ecosystems, pollution, biodiversity. You can see my poor little frog there. He's been affected by pollution in his environment, and it made him grow 3 legs. So again, these help you make informed decisions about the world around you. And then we have this thing called biotechnology. Biotechnology is just technology that has to do with living things. And so biotechnology is the use and application of living things in biological processes. And biotechnology offers great promise, but it also can raise many issues. Okay, and so when we talk about issues, we can talk about molecular genetics and genes. And as we learn more about DNA, we learn more about the way our genes work, and we learn more on how to do different things with our genes. So a gene is a segment of DNA that stores genetic information. And through our understanding of DNA, we can study genetics on a molecular level, which means the basic little molecules or the atoms of DNA. And we use DNA all the time now in medicine and then also in forensics when they're doing like criminal cases to discover who did what. But again, as you learn more about DNA, you're going to be able to make more informed decisions about your health and the world around you based on that DNA. Now, as we go through and we use technology to do things, and especially when it comes time to talk about genetics, these are some of the things that we're going to talk about because major questions are raised when we use biotechnology. You've all probably heard about GMOs or genetically modified organisms. So we genetically modify a lot of the foods that we eat. And again, we'll talk about the reasons behind those later when we talk about genes. And sometimes we can stop the spread of undesirable genes, or we actually might be the cause of the spread of undesirable genes. And sometimes this leads to a decrease in the biodiversity on our planet. So again, these are some just little touches on some of the questions and the concerns that we will talk about as we're going through. These are all ethical considerations or ethical things that we will talk about when we talk more about genetics. And then biology also presents many unanswered questions. So over the past 50 years, biological knowledge has greatly increased. So much, just in the last, I'd say 20 years, especially when we're talking about things like DNA and genes. And we still have so many questions that are unanswered in biology. And these are all things that hopefully, in our lifetime, you never know, we might have answers for. So things like how are memories actually stored in our brain? How do viruses mutate? Does life exist on other planets? These are all examples of biological questions that are still out there waiting to be answered. So anyway, this is just an overview on some of the topics. Again, chapter 1 is really just touching on a lot of the things that we will get into more details on as we move through our sections on biology. So anyway, I'll talk to you in the next video, guys.